Сайн байцгаана уу хүнд үзэгчдээ. Өнөөдөр манай de facto нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор холбооны бүгд найрамдах Германы улсаас Монгол Улсад суугаа Элчин сайд ноён Jorn Rosenberg оролцож байна.
Ёорн Розенберг холбооны бүгд найрамдах Германы улсаас Монгол Улсад суугаа Элчин сайд. Ишлэзвэг хотын дээд сургуульд эргэцэн ухааны мэргэжлэр суралцсан хуульч, дипломатч, холбооны бүгд найрамдах Германы улсын гадаад хэргийн яам, Польш, Энэтхэг, Америкийн нэгдсэн улс, Канада, Казахстан зэрэг улс дахь холбооны бүгд найрамдах Германы улсын Элчин сайдын яамд Элчин сайд, Элчин зөвлөх, ерөнхий консулын газрын дарга зэрэг албан тушаалыг хашиж байжээ. 2019 оны 8 сараас 2023 оны 7 сар хүртэл холбооны бүгд найрамдах Германы улсаас Монгол улсад суугаа Элчин сайдаар ажилласан.
Богдуул цэцэрлэгт хүрээлэн төлдөх үзмжид харагдцтай. Дэлхийн шилдэг брэндүүдээр томилогдсон төгс хийцлэлтэй. Таны гэр бүлийн тав тухайг илэрхийлэх King Tower Apartment. Навдугаар ээжийн орон сууцндаа та бүхнийг урьж байна.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jagal.
So it's a time to say goodbye to Mongolia, right?
It's a time to say goodbye in a couple of days.
After
4 years of service here in Ulaanbaatar.
I remember I met before you come to Mongolia in Almaty.
Yes, that's where we met in
You were
in a
consular there.
big conference. Yeah, that's true.
And you came here 4 years ago, and today Mongolia, we have gone through COVID difficulties, many events.
Yes.
How you would see the situation in Mongolia, of the relations between two countries today as you are of now?
Yeah. Well, I think our relations are excellent. Basically, our relations date back almost 100 years. It will be next year, 2024, when we celebrate 50 years of diplomatic relations. And it was in 1924-25 that the first students and the first young people from Mongolia were sent to Germany, either to study in universities or to learn some trade to get some education. This was when Mongolia had become finally independent and was starting to set up their modern nation. So 100 years, we're looking back, 50 years diplomatic relation next year. I'm very honest, I'm a little bit sorry that I have to leave now, but that are the rules. I'm very sure that my successor will do a wonderful job to celebrate 50 years of diplomatic relations.
Indeed, many things happened during this 100 years. It was you were two different countries, then you get united, and Mongolia sees that trying to keep and develop our economic, political independence, and as far as I see, the second wave was when many Mongolians went to GDR, and as a result we have many Mongolians speaking German now.
That's true.
In Asia, probably the largest amount of German speakers per capita would be, is it?
That is true, yes.
What does it say to you about the future relations, what we can grow on this basis?
Well, as you have pointed out, in relation to the per capita, there is a big number of German speakers. So this relation goes on. Now you have, in some cases, third generation, many cases second generation, where people who have studied either in the former GDR or in the reunified Germany. Now their children are about to leave school and go back, especially in these days when there are the summer holidays, and after the summer break, university starts again. We reserved extra slots for young Mongolians who apply to study in Germany. and saying that, we met over all this time, even in the Corona time. And if I'm proud of what we did, there's one point I'm very proud of. Even during the Corona time, we managed that every Mongolian student who got a scholarship for Germany was able to go to Germany and go to university or did whatever he wanted to do. So I think our relation is very good, and it goes on. It's handed over from one generation to the next.
Scientific, educational, many
Yes.
fields you develop, continuing the also former relations with the GDR. When you said scholarship, what kind of opportunities are still existing or getting for young people again to study in Germany?
Well, basically, the base you need is to have a good proper knowledge of German language. Yeah, we call it the DSD language diploma, Sprachdiplom. There is the basis, number one, and then the better one, number two. This is where you're allowed to basically go directly into studies. Or the others who have to catch up a little bit with the German, they have to go through one kind of
Language
prep
race.
year for the language.
However, education in Germany is free.
Education in Germany is free, yes.
And how affordable for students now to go there and to study?
I think if you compare it to other Western countries like England, United States, Canada, Australia, it's much more affordable, yeah. Because if you go to these universities, you have to pay for the education, and you have, of course, to pay for your living.
In those countries?
In those countries. So in Germany, you also have to pay for your living.
Living,
But you don't have to pay no tuition fees.
That, of course, opens a lot of opportunities for people. First, they need to learn properly German, right?
Yes, but there are more and more universities where you can study in English language also.
Let's talk in terms of political relations now.
Yes.
In particular, the things are not easy for a country like Mongolia in between two giants, and the war in Ukraine. All things makes very delicate. How do you find Mongolian stand on the issue of war?
I think you pointed out the constraints, which is geography where you can't do anything about. Mongolia is situated as a landlocked country between Russia and China. Yeah, but I like to quote your Prime Minister. When he visited Germany last October, he had, as he told me, a very long and very intensive exchange with our Chancellor. And he told our Chancellor, Mongolia is landlocked, but Mongolia is not mind-locked. So you are open-minded, your government is open-minded, they know where their friends are, they call us third neighbors, though we are more than 7,000 kilometers away. And I think this is something where it points out how important the relations are between our countries. Yeah? And so I'm very positive about our relations, and I think there will be a boost next year when we have 50 years of diplomatic relations. I hope there will be very high-ranking visitors coming. I cannot promise because, as you said when we started the interview, it's my last days. I have to leave the country. I will retire, but I'm very sure my successor will work on that.
What else you think we could do better in terms of diplomatic relations, political relations?
Well, exchange is the major thing. And we had big problems over the last years because of Corona. There was no travel possible, no exchange. And as you know, between you and me, we often met during my time here. And it's always, and I think we can agree on that, it's always important to look each other into the eyes, and have some open discussions. And once you had the constraints with during the Corona time where you could not travel, this of course is a big impediment. Yeah. So now we have to try to catch up, to continue all the visits which had been postponed, all the discussions, negotiations. But this is a general problem. That's nothing typical between Mongolia and Germany.
Let's talk about economic cooperation.
Yes.
In spite of this human relations, political good contacts, to me, we need more and more German investment. What is your take on that? What was the situation 4 years ago when you came, and what is it today, and where we can improve?
Well, you're absolutely right. Economic relations, trade exchange is very important. I've been working on that. Just 2 weeks ago, you had the big investment conference here in Ulaanbaatar, and I think everything which had to be said was said during this conference. Yeah.
In fact, yes.
So what you need is good investment climate. You need reliability. You need to strengthen the rule of law, and I think your government knows about that, and they are working on it. Yeah.
You talk about the rule of law, which actually was a lot highlighted during the economic forum. In that sense, I understand there is a certain work in between two parliaments and also with the judiciary system. Yes. What kind of cooperation is going on there?
Well, between Germany and Mongolia, it's for almost 30 years now that we support you on upgrading, changing your legal system, and that is across the board, be it private law, be it constitutional law, the amendment of the election law, the amendment of your constitution. We had a lot of discussions. I had a lot of discussions with ministers, with members of parliament, the political foundations here, the German political foundation like Ebert Foundation, Konrad Adenauer Foundation, Hans Seidel Foundation. They are working for many, many years in the field of legal cooperation. So that's a very good exchange, and we continue this exchange. And I think it's necessary to understand how important rule of law and a good working legal system is.
I remember my visit to meet some your parliament Bundestag departments, which is responsible for political parties financing.
Yes.
And each political party in Germany, there are many now coalition, they are financed in 3 ways. They are on political party, on the parliament member, they own money, then state money, then the money they have donations received.
Yes, yes.
And they're making sure that this kind of are balanced, and they are very transparent, which is not the case in this country, which I find sort of source of corruption here. In that sense, you have met almost all political elite in the country, where we can improve.
Well, as I said, we have discussions about all kind of legal topics, and we are also working on the request of the Mongolian side, how to improve financing of parties. Yeah, in Germany we have a law about that, and currently here in Mongolia, I know there are in the parliament discussions about introducing a similar legal basis. Yeah. So I think that's another good example which you gave, where we have a very good cooperation and where we are happy to support Mongolia.
So this is really something that from Germany, if Mongolia is to learn, this is, I thought, very, very important aspect of making better the rule of law in the country. In terms of the constitution change, what is your thought on what happened in Mongolia? Somehow within 4 years, 2 changes, etc., which all happened during your time here.
Well, you know, there have been changes to the constitution before. And it's a process you have to learn. Yeah, our constitution dates back to 1949. Yeah, and we had a history. We had to learn after World War I, after the time of the Nazi rule, how to improve our constitutions. Yeah. And part of this knowledge and experience we are sharing with you. So I think it's the discussions I had with your politicians were very fruitful and very intense. And I think it's a good thing that the government, the president is trying to base the changes in the constitution on a broad basis. Yeah, there were discussions basically in all IMACs between the parties, between the member of parliaments. So I think the approach is very good. It's open, it's transparent.
How often have you been amending your constitutions since 1949?
That's a good question. I would have to go back. Though I'm a lawyer by education, I would have to look it up. There have been many, many changes. Many of these changes you don't really get to know as a normal citizens. They often are minor changes, improvements, and so on. But there have been many changes.
What is the procedure to make amendments in the constitutions? I mean, here you make 3/4 absolute majority of the parliamentarians can do it, one. The other thing is national referendum. What is the procedure in Germany?
In Germany, it depends what part of the constitution there are some parts which you cannot amend at all. Yeah. That is so-called the eternity rules or eternity guarantee, like some of the basic rules and basic structure of our state, which you cannot change.
But is it law that a particular part will not be changed?
Yeah.
It's part of the constitution itself.
Of the constitution. Yeah. And besides that, it depends which part of the legal system you are going to change. Sometimes you only have to have the parliament. Sometimes you have to have the agreement of the so-called second chamber, the Bundesrat, where all the federal states are represented.
What I noticed is, it's one of the reasons why we had amended the constitutions first, then we amended back. Remember, we call it double del, where the minister can be the parliament member. And what is the situation in your country? How many parliament members, how many cabinet members, are there parliament members?
Well, a member of cabinet can be a member of parliament. Normally they are, but he or she does not have to be member of parliament. So the chancellor is presenting his cabinet, and he can go and maybe have like a renowned professor from university who is a specialist, let's say, in environmental questions, and appoint him as Minister of Environment. But normally you have members of parliament who are ministers.
Would that man who is not parliament member is to be approved by the Bundestag?
The way is that the chancellor has to have the majority of the Bundestag for his whole cabinet. So basically he has to be approved.
The other interesting structure you have is you have a minister, parliamentarian secretary.
Yes.
What is that combination?
Well, this is basically kind of a deputy minister, and the idea is to have a link between the parliamentarians and the ministries. Yeah, you know, the ministries, the officials in the ministries, they often are on a lifelong basis there. Yeah, so if the government changes, they keep on working. Yeah, and then these so-called parliamentarian state secretary, they are the link between the ministries, between the officials, and the parliamentarians.
But that was a main reason why we have amended back that provision, which was restricting not to be both. I remember, and we put it back.
I know, yeah.
And the problem was there that exactly what you were saying, the connection between the lawmakers and the cabinet. So what you're saying is a minister and then the deputy. How many deputies?
It depends on how big the ministry is. Like the Ministry of Finance has more deputies than smaller ministry.
And one of them is to be parliament member.
One or two, yes.
One or two, the deputies.
Yes.
So and that
Or state, we call them state secretaries.
And what is the particular function of that person connecting parliament with the cabinet?
Well, first, he has all the experience which he can get from the ministry. Yeah. On the other hand, he is a member of parliament and he can talk to his caucus. Yeah. So it's a bit like what we as a diplomat do. Yeah. We share our knowledge on both sides. Yeah. We are a kind of interpreter. Yeah. So to try to explain to one side what the other side wants, or to the other side what is not possible for legal or other
kind of
reasons.
Dialogue creation.
Yes, yeah. That is the idea behind it.
Another question just now, it happens to be now at this time. I saw the other day speaker at the parliament, a woman, suggesting that we should reopen our nuclear power stations instead of buying nuclear stations from France at the time of the economic or energetic crisis. So is it the intention? Will you open back your nuclear stations?
You know, there's for many years there are many discussions going on, not only in Germany, in all of the Western countries, and currently with the war between Russia and Ukraine, of course the gas supply is no longer possible these days. Besides that, I think there's general agreement that we have to go more into renewables, and the discussions is more about how you go with this transit period. Yeah, what is the best way to reduce CO2 emissions? And
will they open it?
I don't know. You know, there have been so many discussions. If you ask me today, I would say probably no, but maybe in 3 or 4 or 5 months, the world looks totally different.
Another point she was raising was about the immigration. And why would immigrants would have so much money, of care money, cash, which otherwise could make better living conditions of German citizens, in particular senior citizens in remote areas?
Well, this is also a very big discussion, and there is no easy solution to that. Yeah, so we have international legal provisions about human rights protection, migration, everything, and we have a lot of decisions by our constitutional court and by high courts. We have European law, we have European rules. So it's not so easy that you freely can decide how you treat immigrants and whether you give them a certain amount of money or whether you just support them in kind. It's a very complex situation.
Indeed.
And if you would like to have a discussion, you have to invite me back to Mongolia. But you will have a very long session in your TV.
Well, interesting thing is, it's always interesting to know people who watch and who knows everything, what's happening in your country. And that's why I asked it on some several issues. In terms of about the renewable energy, you have invested, Germany invested in renewable energy projects in Mongolia. And I have heard that some have still problems.
Well, I think that's an open secret that investment in renewable energy could be very profitable here, but there are still discussions going on. I think every government in Mongolia could invest much more into renewable energies. You have a lot of sun. You have more than 300 days in the year where sun is shining, summer and winter.
We call it too much.
You have a lot of wind.
Okay.
And you have a big neighbor in the south who depends on energy.
And you have technology.
You could export a lot of renewable energy.
Okay, finally, a bit of personal note. What's your plan? You said you will be retired, but German people are becoming also, having a brand new career in their life after they are retired. What's your plan?
Well, I'll let you know when you come and visit me in Germany.
Okay. Will you write about Mongolia?
Sorry?
Will you write about Mongolia?
I'll see. You know, there are some ambassadors who always try to teach their successors what they have to do and to think. I'm not one of that.
Okay.
So I'll find some other interesting things, but I for sure will not forget Mongolia and continue to support our bilateral relations with my contacts.
Some countries' ambassadors leave their telephone number, the same telephone, same email. Is it a rule? I mean, is it in your case, in your country, or how does it work? Interesting.
Well, the official telephone number is always the same for the German embassy.
Embassy, and the email as well.
And the email as well.
This is a good kind of transition system, huh? Well, okay. And really, I want to talk to you at the end of your career in Mongolia. I didn't know whether you will retire or not, but it's always important to listen to the ambassador who spent 4 years in this country at this time. That's why I really tried to make this interview, and thank you very much for accepting that. And I would like all great days in the future to you.
Thank you, Jagal. It was always a pleasure to work together with you. I'm looking forward to have you as my guest in Germany.
Thank you.
And then for sure we will carry on with our discussions.
All the best. Thank you for your friendship.
Thank you.
За хүн үзэгчдээ өнөөдөр манай de facto нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор Герман улсын холбооны бүгд найрамдах Герман улсын Монголд 4 жил ажилласан Элчин Сайд ноён Jorn Rosenberg оролцлоо. Баярлалаа.
Хотын төвөөс 3 км зайд байрлах хүүхдэд ээлтэй хотхны төлөвлөлт, ногоон байгууламж, эрүүл амьдралын хэв маягийг бүрэн цогцлоосон King Club Sport Complex. Олон улсын хөтөлбөрийг хэрэгжүүлэгч сургууль, цэцэрлэгтэй, шинжлэгдсэн экстриертэй 5 дугаар Элчин орон сууц ашиглалтанд орлоо.